What is good, y'all? If you haven't been checking out my podcast so far, well, you're in luck today because I'm dropping a snippet here for this video. This conversation features our fellow YouTuber, none other than Karin, whose channel is fantastic. A bunch of you are probably already subscribed. But nonetheless, we hopped on the Zoom call and we started talking about all kinds of stuff: photography, psychology, cooking, you name it. It's a very interesting conversation, so please go ahead and check it out. If you like the podcast and you want to see more of this on YouTube, let me know in the comments below or at least give me a like on the video. Let's go.
Yeah, hi, Eric. First off, thanks for having me. I've been a big fan of your channel for a long time, so I'm pretty happy to be here. A couple of words about myself. I am a psychologist and analog photographer from Germany, shooting film for the most part, just doing fun stuff, experimenting, printing in the darkroom, going
Nice.
around, having adventures, and actually also recording those adventures and sharing them on YouTube. So that's
Yeah,
basically it.
very nice. I think what you just described, I feel like that describes me too. I think we're kind of on the same style. It's just I don't know. It seems like, at least for me, and I'm curious if you feel this way too. But I feel like YouTube is a way to kind of document your learning and progression. It's just it's almost like a diary. Is that kind of how you feel?
Absolutely, yeah, it feels like that. I think there's a lot of channels out there who do like more, I would say, in a way, more knowledgeable content than
Yeah.
mine, because I'm not really doing all that much related to gear or reviews and stuff like that. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
mostly just trying to show that I'm just a normal girl shooting film, showing that, this is part of my life and trying to document that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it definitely feels like a diary from time
Yeah.
to time for me as well.
Gotcha.
If
Okay,
that
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
No, it definitely makes sense. It's interesting. I find that a lot of people who shoot film specifically often like come into it from like a lot of various like diverse directions. So, like you said, you have other artistic pursuits like painting and that kind of thing. Um, does that inform your photography, or does your photography inform that, or is it kind of just all one big like mix of just creativity? Like, how do you deal with that?
Oh, that's such a good question, actually, because I've been thinking about this a lot myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see creativity and like different channels, different media more as different languages that are all translatable into each other. And I have to also say that before I started photography, I was also more on the skeptical side of photography, because I was mostly painting and I was thinking, photography is just for lazy people who don't want to, get a brush in their hands. I mean, don't judge me, but I've definitely changed perspective since then.
Sure.
Um, and then I realized that it's kind of all the same. It's all just like some sort of creative endeavor that you have those feelings inside that you kind of need to get out. So for me, it doesn't really matter if I have a brush in my hand, if I have a camera in my hand,
Mm-hmm.
just serves the same purpose, just kind of as a different turn, a different
Yeah.
visual element. But I think it doesn't really matter. And I also try, I mean, I haven't shared those thoughts on my YouTube channel that
Mm-hmm.
much, because recently I haven't been printing all that much, but I think there's a lot of kind of parallels between painting, between photography and other media, because
Yeah.
especially, I mean, you print yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I think you're one of the masters when it comes to printing. I'm definitely not on your league.
Definitely not a master, but I'll take the compliment.
I mean, but you do like color printing, and I haven't tried that,
Hmm.
which I find very fascinating. But if you do printing, you kind of probably also know that there's so many elements that you can
Hmm.
tweak. And since you have liquids, you can also use different techniques, as for example, kind of
Hmm.
pouring liquids, also using a brush to apply your developer and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So I've been trying to experiment a bit more. On the boundaries and on the kind of similarities between painting
Yeah.
and photography. So let's see if this will also ever make it to my channel. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think this is fascinating to see that it's not totally different, but it's for me it's basically the same.
No, that makes total sense. I think about that with myself. I guess my other artistic pursuits are cooking. I've been like cooking has been my passion for a very long time. I'd say maybe 10 years at this point. No,
I
longer
saw
than
that
that.
on Instagram that you've been like putting some recipes on there, which
Yeah,
also
yeah.
look very, very good, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I before I started doing photography, well, funny story. I'll give you a quick kind of timeline. I started cooking a ton in college. So let's say
Hmm.
when I was like 17, 18, that kind of age. I graduated college 21, and then I'm like, man, I really like cooking. But I was like, I'm never gonna work in a restaurant because that life is too hard. So I started really just like diving into cooking on my own, like really deeply, like trying to learn all these like techniques and kind of like putting myself through like a fake culinary school using the internet and YouTube, in fact. And I learned a lot. I was like, I would go to restaurants and eat and like taste things and be like, all right, like this is, I was learning from eating. The point is, I went super deep in there and like started doing all kinds of really cool stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I should document this. This was back when blogs were like the thing. And I was like, it's funny because I was like, damn, I'm so late to the blog game. Like I should have had a blog for a long time. So I started a blog, taking really shitty photos with, I guess, my phone. I don't know. And think about the timeline. This is 20, let's say 11. The phone
Yeah.
photos were trash. So anyways, I was like, all right, let me buy a camera. So I bought a Canon Rebel T3i, and that's how I got into photography. And what I realized between the two, well, actually, fast forward now to film photography. What I've realized now is that in all of those different kind of artistic things, what really drew me to enjoying myself was actually just messing around. And messing around for me means like no hard rules. It means definitely like kind of thinking on the fly and experimenting, and just not really having like a super respect for like, let's say, tradition or like, the conventions. And for film photography and cooking, I do both of that. Like when I cook, I don't use recipes. I have a couple books, but I don't read them. I buy them for the pictures and I'm like, okay, like this looks cool. But like I just do whatever I want. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna take
Yeah.
this ingredient, I'm gonna mix it with that. And like I know some techniques and I know some broad principles. So I kind of just freestyle. With film photography, it's kind of similar. Like I use all kinds of different cameras. I don't really have like one specific go-to. When I'm developing, I kind of have a general expectation of what I'm supposed to do, but I hardly measure temperature. Like, I don't do like precise inversion and like I just like, I'm just all over the place, and I'm still getting.
You're the jazz musician amongst film photographers improvising.
I mean, that's the most romantic way to put it. If you want to be like, literature and history, like I'm a jazz musician of photography, but I'll take it. But yeah, no, I think just to kind of like bring the point home is the process is more what I like really love when it comes to those artistic pursuits, as opposed to like the actual end results. Obviously, photos are great and all that, but there's a reason why I became obsessed with film photography compared to digital. Digital, I was always focused on the image, and like I was like, all right, I got to post process this, I got to do this and that, but it was always about that picture. With film photography, the images themselves obviously matter, but the things that I can do with them, whether in developing or afterwards printing, like that's where I get the most joy. So it's interesting to kind of look at everything you're interested in and combine it and kind of figure out what the common thread is. Because cooking and photography, they're very different, but at the same time, with film at least, they can be very similar in terms of the
Yeah, absolutely.
process.
And
Um,
I mean, apart from the fact that you have like recipes, kind of cookbooks and
yeah.
thermometers that you need for both, I also think like because we've been talking about my profession before we started this podcast very
Mm-hmm.
briefly. This is also what I was kind of trying to get into when studying psychology, because I have a master's degree in psychology and I'm currently working in a hospital in psychiatry.
Mm-hmm.
But like one core thing that I've been most interested during my studies was the whole kind of area surrounded creativity and learning about what creativity actually is, how we can kind
Yeah.
of tackle it, how we can define it, what different kind of channels creativity has.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I found the most interesting and that stuck to me the most, because I also wrote my theses, like bachelor's and master's on creativity,
Mm-hmm.
is that basically everything that we know about creativity is not entirely true. Because what most people
Interesting.
think when thinking about creativity is that you have to be a painter, that you have to be an actor, or that you have to be a writer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the kind of underlying similarities on all those topics is the kind of creative thinking part, because everything that creativity basically is tackling problems in a novel way, tackling
Mm-hmm.
problems in a way that has probably never been done before. And if you think about this definition of creativity, to not see by like some sort of boundaries and limitations, but trying to overcome them by having new ideas, I think this kind of shows why cooking and
Yeah.
film and painting and everything is connected, because this is what you've been doing, or we've been doing in basically all of them,
Yeah.
by not following recipes, but following your intuition, seeing how you can get the like specific taste out of the ingredients you have, is creativity,
Yeah.
because you have to think outside of the box. That's the same with shooting film, with developing printing, which I find so fascinating, and which I think the categories we are thinking in are kind of not real, but they're more or less fluid.
That's very interesting. I feel like I've never thought about, you're right, like creativity is not just applied to very specific activities. You can, I guess what you're saying is you can be creative in literally anything. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, y'all, that's it for today. If you enjoyed it, you already know what to do. Go ahead and like and subscribe. And of course, check out the next video. I'm out.